order. Our first meeting will be the Board of Review. For this meeting, we'll need a voice roll call.
Okay. Do the pledge. DeGidio.
Here.
Graffin.
Here.
Drews.
Here.
Jensen. Hain. Okay.
Are we
Okay,
doing the pledge?
Do you want to do the pledge now?
We
It's
can't.
not on either.
It's not on here, but we can.
Do it. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Moving on to number 3, verification of Board of Review notice and meeting notice.
The Board of Review notice was posted at the Oakland Town Hall, at Herrings Lake Ripley Inn, at the Cambridge Post Office, and on the Town of Oakland website, as well as the meeting notice.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item 4, select a chairperson for the Board of Review meeting. Are there any nominations for chair?
I'll name it Laura Payne.
Okay.
So we need a second.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor of myself as chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so moved. Verify that at least one member of the Board of Review has met the mandatory training requirements.
Supervisor Joy Graffin has met the training requirements, and those results have been reported to the Department of Revenue.
Thank you. Okay.
Laura, you didn't go to the?
I wasn't able to go.
Oh, okay.
That's why she said you were the only one.
Well, I know, but I
I
thought you had signed up for it.
I had, but something came up.
You were ill.
I was ill, wasn't able to attend. And number 6, the Board of Review will meet for the purpose of calling the Board of Review into session during the 45-day period beginning on the 4th Monday of April pursuant to Section 70.47, Parent 1 of the Wisconsin State Statutes. The Board of Review will be adjourned to August 11, 2025, at which time it is anticipated that the Board of Review will meet and hear any filed objections.
It should be filed.
Yeah, sorry, typo.
The open book for the Town of Oakland is going to be on Tuesday, July 22nd, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and our Board of Review will be on Monday, August 11th, from 3 to 5 p.m. If you have questions about either the open book or the Board of Review, you can call the clerk's office and we can get you the proper paperwork if you want to file an objection. It is a maintenance year, so there's just going to be a percentage of the properties in the Town of Oakland that will be reviewed. So you may or may not get a letter about open book.
Susan, can you post those dates on our website?
They are posted
Yeah.
on the website, and I can make them more prominent now that some of our other events have passed.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Review
So
meeting.
moved? So moved?
Jimmy, move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so our Board of Review meeting is done, and we will go on to our regular monthly meeting. So I will call that to order at 6:35. And verification of notice you had mentioned.
The meeting was noticed at the Oakland Town Hall, the Town of Oakland website, at Herrings Lake Ripley Inn, and the Cambridge post office.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. I would like Chief Peterson to come up first, since I know he has to leave for a city council meeting.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for
Hello.
coming.
First of all, thank you for attending the Public Officials Day that we had at the end of last month. Sorry it got cut short, but we hope that was enjoyable, and you get to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit on what we do, and all the partners, township partners, got to meet each other and our city manager and staff, so we felt good about that. The maintenance of effort, I sent you an email today. The time frame is done at the end of May, which is coming up, so first couple days in June, I'll send you my certification on that. We can get that taken care of. Staff did most of the fire inspections in Oakland over the last month or so. I think they said they have 2 or 3 left, so. Once that's all completed, I'll send you guys a note with what we did and what we found, but so far we haven't seen any issues with that. And then lastly, Chairperson and I are sitting on an EMS commission or panel, looking at EMS in Jefferson County and kind of addressing it from a really high point of view, and how we can improve it, how we can pay for it, how we all can work together to reduce costs. And our area is well represented, because we have a member of Kashkadan also on that commission, so we're thinking that should pay dividends down the road. It'll be a long process of a couple of years probably, but in the end, I think we'll get our arms around this and have a really great EMS system in the county.
Yeah, I was going to mention this at our meeting, because we just had that first EMS work group meeting.
Right.
So I was invited to sit on that recently, and they just had their first meeting last week.
Right.
So that did work out really well, just first getting to know each other, getting to understand the issues and challenges that everyone in the county faces. There's lots of different people with lots of different issues and ideas. So it's just getting started. There's really nothing to report as far as what we haven't really accomplished anything yet, but I think it was a first.
We've identified issues.
We've identified issues. I think it's a good
Yep,
first
and
start.
it's a good start, so. Other than that, if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
Nope,
No?
good.
Well, thank you for
Thank you
all
for
you're
having me.
doing
Thanks
for
for
us,
coming.
and we
Okay.
really appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll move on to any member of the public that would like
Well,
to.
I'd like to just mention, as long as we did the Fort Fire, the Jefferson Fire, we voted to donate the $2,000 for the UTV for Jefferson Fire and EMS to use. I just have an update from Ron Wagner, the chief, that 4 of the 5 municipalities that they serve have also donated the $2,000 towards that. They're waiting for 1 municipality to vote on it yet. And other than that, they've also raised $11,000 in private donations to go with it. So they're getting close to the estimated $25,000 that they need for that. It's a good thing.
Great, thank you, Joy. That's great news. Did anyone have any questions for Joy about that? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on then to public comment from anyone in the audience that would like to come up. You're welcome to come on up. I see you. Just please state your name.
My name is Greg Anderson. I'm a resident of town of Oakland, and I wanted to present the board with, there's no ordinance for short-term rentals, vacation rentals in the town of Oakland. And there are numerous entities in the township. 3 of them are my neighbors. And that's presenting some issues and some problems. Other neighbors are here also. The biggest issue is parking. Either the property owners or the rental people have sometimes poor regard for the residents that are there all the time, with parking either right in our lawns or on the side of the street, maybe having 2 wheels on the lawn, 2 wheels in the street. Or last week, one of them decided to just park their car right in the road for several hours. And our concern is emergency vehicles, fire, rescue, getting through. And we have narrow streets to begin with. We don't want our streets widened. We like our little neighborhood. And so, you know, it can be a hazard. And so I was just asking if the township would look into the situation. Other municipalities have these places register. They have to have permits. And is there a procedure that we can put in place for grievances and complaints, that if too many complaints or grievances came upon a certain particular property or whatever, that the matter would be looked into? We're just looking for some answers here.
Where
Because
do
this
you-
happens, I've been in to talk to the town hall three years in a row, and every time they say, no, we haven't done anything.
Where do you live?
Sleepy Hollow Road.
I've worked on a draft ordinance, and I've been researching. There's a little discrepancy about who's actually licensed and who's advertising. It's a lot of work to put all the pieces together in that, but I think we're trying to do it as quickly as we can.
Well, in the meantime, we still have parking ordinances, and especially if someone is parking in the middle of the street, that is a police matter, and we don't need an ordinance to, you know, to address those issues. We can ask in the meantime, you know, even if we had an ordinance in place, we would still need to, you know, rectify this by trying to issue tickets, having cars removed if they're in the middle of the street. You know, so have you ever called?
I called on that particular day, I called, first off, I called the Oakland Town Police Department, which of course, they're not staffed all the time.
No,
And they
no.
weren't. And so then the next choice was to call Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, which you can do. If they're in the area, they'll get there relatively soon, or maybe not. Now, this car was there for several hours, so they would have had opportunity. I had to leave, so I don't know if the sheriff or whatever came, but I do feel, unfortunately, it's poor use of law enforcement time and talents to just come on for a car parked there. But
Well, not necessarily if you're
if we're
thinking
concerned
it's
with
a,
emergency
right,
vehicles,
emergency
so-
vehicle
Yeah.
blockage.
And part of the other thing is these Airbnbs or whatever, they advertise, you know, like the one next door advertises they've got room for 12 people. Well, when you look in the bedroom, I can see it from my house. It's a barracks over there. There's double, what do you call them? Twin, or stacked beds.
Oh, bunk beds?
Yeah. And so, you know, they say, yeah, come on, George, we got a place rented. So there's space for 3 cars maybe, and then all of a sudden now there's 5 or 6 on a particular day, and trying to find places to park.
Well, we will be looking into an ordinance, but we also will have to have enforcement.
Enforcement's the tough one.
It's the tough one, but I have
I can
asked.
be a volunteer.
We'll give you an honorary badge. I have asked the fire department to staff during Memorial Day weekend to go around the areas to look into what some of the issues may be, you know, including parking. There may be other issues as well, to see during those holiday times might be a good time to really evaluate these types of issues that are coming, so that we could address in an ordinance or in other ways, you know, to enforce some of
The
know,
fire
And our little
department or the
neighborhoods
police
are
department?
tolerant of
our police department.
Okay.
of,
You said
Oh,
fire
I'm sorry, I
department.
meant to say police department.
our
Asked our
little
police
neighborhoods
department.
are tolerant of holiday business or holiday visitors, whatever, we've got a weekend coming up, we know we're gonna have congestion and we're gonna have some extra cars parked here and there. But we're usually courteous with one another, maybe ask, can we park a car there or park a car here, So, we're courteous to one another.
Yeah, well, we
get along,
appreciate
but
that.
when you disrespect us, we don't like it.
We
There's nothing wrong
understand.
with it.
Oh, great. Well,
So-
we will keep
I don't know
you
if anybody else has
posted
any
if
more
you
comments,
need to reach out. If there is any more issues, please reach out to us so we can
You want me to help you,
identify.
let me know.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Greg.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Fritz-Jarlsberg. Thank you for listening to me. I live on N4153 Sleepy Hollow Road. So to add what was being said is, my main concern is the parking with the Airbnbs. I have the property that is across the road, and the road is a single car road, and they're parking in front of my property, on the road and on my property. They're also parking on my property, like going into it. I have addressed it with the owners, face to face, politely, and asked them not to do it, and even with that, it continues. So that is my main concern. I did call the police last year, and we had a handful of conversations and asked if, wanted to know what my rights were, what I should do, the proper thing to do, and asked if I could get a no parking sign on that road. They do park in front of the mailboxes. They park in front of, like I said, my property, which is then a safety concern because there's a little hill there. So somebody coming over that hill and there's car there, they're gonna hit them. So that's my other concern that I have, and the police officer said he was gonna come to a meeting last year here and talk about it, bring it up, and then get back to me, and he has not answered my phone calls ever since then. So I still wanna ask if we can pursue a no parking sign there, to help with the situation for communication for those Airbnb residents that they do have. I'm sure they have a rules that they have to follow when they rent the Airbnbs, but the renters have not been following those rules. They're supposed to park up by the Piggly Wiggly or the old church there if they have extra cars than what the space allows, and they do not do that. So it would be a good communication tool for them. And let me see. Wondering if, this was asked, if the Airbnbs do have licenses. It is a residential facility, a place there. That's one reason why I purchased my property. And I just want to know if they have licenses to actually run a business there. And do they have what's called, I just learned this evening, a tourist rooming house in Jefferson County? Do they have to pay taxes? What does the zoning in Jefferson County say about the Airbnbs? Those are the main things that I'd like to have looked at, and and I'd be happy to help with this if I could get some guidance on what we need to do to make it a safer place for everybody who lives there.
Jeff, is that road, is there an ordinance for no parking on that road, or is parking allowed?
There's no ordinance at this time.
Okay. If we put up a no parking, we'd have to have, I think, an ordinance, unless it was a place that was specifically no parking, and then you wouldn't be able to park there either, or the residents, I don't think. So we'd have to look into more of that with the safety on that road. So if there's no parking, nobody.
And that would be fine with me,
Okay.
because like I said, it's a safety issue.
Right.
That's my biggest thing. It's a safety issue. Also, it's a respect issue that people that are staying over there or any neighbors, you don't just drive on somebody else's property.
Right, that's not allowed.
Without permission.
Right.
You should ask, it's respecting the property of that owner.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
absolutely,
how
no
I
one should
was
be on
raised.
your, no one should
You
be on
ask
your
first.
property.
And then it's, I'm liable
Mm-hmm.
for that vehicle on my property.
Right.
Legally, I am. If something happens to it, they can come back and sue me, because my car was on your property. They're not asking to park there.
I was
And
just
then-
thinking the road itself, not your
Yeah.
property. That absolutely should not be
But
happening.
still, that's, of equal value too. So it's just, and then parking in front of the mailboxes, the mail people can't get there. So I can put no parking signs up if that's allowed. I haven't yet. I've been told by different people to do so. Is that something I can do? Is it legally binding? I'm understanding it's really not. They can ignore that. And they do drive through my yard, through the back neighbor's yard too, so they put up like a metal fence between my property and theirs to stop the traffic. There's a right-of-way that's between a house and my property, and they're attempting to drive through that as well. It's my understanding, a walkway to get to the lake. It's not a driveway, it's a walkway.
Did you talk to our police chief about that? Somebody recently did.
A year ago, I talked to the Jefferson County Police multiple times, one of the officers. We were communicating back and forth, and then, like I said, he said he was gonna come to this meeting and bring up my issues and get back to me, and he did not. And then I called him several times after, and he didn't answer nor return my calls.
Okay.
We've switched police chiefs
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, I will reach out to her and talk to her about the
Yeah.
issues and see, what's legal and what's not, and we'll later just give your number to Susan, and we'll have her reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Is
you.
it okay if we ask, I mean, if you would send an email probably to Susan with your name and contact information, and then possibly the name of that Airbnb? And I have gotten a list. There is a discrepancy about who's licensed and who's not.
Mhm.
And I'd like to see if they are on my list that I have.
Okay,
Okay.
will do.
We'll just reach out to Susan, and we'll get back to you with some more information and have our police chief, Leonard, get in touch with you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Same subject. We have the property at N4168 Sleepy Hollow, and parking shows up everywhere as a problem. To answer one of the questions, the state issues licenses to VRBOs and Airbnbs. That responsibility to issue and maintain inquiry over licenses has been delegated to Jefferson County. And so the office that you'd contact
Watertown?
is Jefferson County. And if you do that with respect to an address that doesn't have a license but is operating as a
I've got a list from
VRBO,
Jefferson County.
they will send a notice of non-compliance, and then they'll follow up. And they will be licensed the next time you run across it. That goes part of the way. Oakland does not have an ordinance imposing a bed tax. City of Jefferson does, Madison does, and I think that it's a thing that the township should look into. These are businesses. There's a lot of activity at these businesses in the summertime. A number of them rent full-time, in other words, all year round. You can check the internet. There's scheduling that covers every single month, every single day. And the parking, you can't find Mr. Trailer, when he, he had a number of rental properties and go knock on the door and say, we got a problem with this tenant. In the ordinary case, they're LLCs, and the manager of the LLC may not even be disclosed on the public filing. So it's a different time, and there's nobody that necessarily is going to be right there and responsible. And so I would urge the township to look further into it. And last plug is, don't let the assessors use the sale of a VRBO to assess residential properties, because they are businesses, and it's not legal to do that. And these businesses, they get to deduct their capital improvements on their taxes. Homeowners don't have that. Only the businesses do. Thanks.
Okay,
Nice.
thank you. We'll look into it. Thank you. Anybody else like to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then. To approval of the minutes from April 15th, 2025 meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes from April 15th, 2025.
Joy made a motion. Anyone want a second?
I will second that.
David says second. Any comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approval of the minutes from April 15th, 2025 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passes. Move on to number 5, town audit presentation. Johnson Block.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Or us, I guess. So my name is Jeff Oswald with Johnson Block & Company. We also have Adam Peterson in the back there. He's assisted with the audit this year. And we, as I mentioned, we conducted the financial audit for the town again this year. And so tonight, actually this is our first year being in attendance at a board meeting, but tonight we're essentially just going to do a brief financial overview of the financial statements and then answer any questions you may have with regards to the audit this year. So instead of the issued final copy of the report, we're just going to go through this financial overview for simplicity's sake, basically. And prior to getting into the financials themselves, I just briefly, on that first page there, just briefly wanted to go through the content of the audit report, essentially when you page through it, what you would see. So first off is our independent auditor's report, or the opinion letter. We did provide an unmodified opinion again this year, essentially noting that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, and that they are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And an unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance we're able to provide in an audit. So next again, this is a general fund only audit. So the general fund is the only fund of the town. And so the only financial statements that are presented are essentially the balance sheet and the income statement of the general fund. Next come the required footnote disclosures that accompany the financial statements, and then there are a couple of required supplementary schedules in the back of the report as well. To go along with the audit, we were also engaged to compile and submit the town's annual Form CT. So that's the Municipal Financial Report that is due to the Wisconsin DOR, and that was due on May 15th, so that has been submitted timely. And then at the end of the audit process, we were required to provide governance, so you, the board, a couple of standard audit communication letters. So that should be one of the additional documents that you have as well. And so there are 3 different letters included in that packet, basically. The first letter is really just standard language, basically identifying any changes to accounting principles during the year, any sensitive estimates within the financial statements. If we came across any difficulties with management or just difficulties during the audit, which we did not have, And then we also include our adjusting journal entries along with that letter as well. The second letter within that packet identified, well, I should say, as part of our audit process, we are required to review the town's internal control procedures and identify any potential deficiencies within those internal controls, and subsequently then report on them as well. So we did have two deficiencies. One being the material audit adjustments that were recorded during the audit, along with the lack of segregation of duties. Now, deficiency sounds like a harsh word, but these two deficiencies that we had this year, they were sort of carryover ones that we've had in the past here at the town, but they're also very common for smaller municipalities. So those, municipalities that have limited staff, limited resources, limited expertise maybe in some areas to really mitigate these deficiencies. But again, very common for smaller municipalities, really nothing out of the ordinary there. But since we're reporting on a year-by-year basis, even though these are roll-forward ones from previous years, we have to report on them again here in 2024 as well. So, but nothing out of the ordinary there. And then the last letter is what's called a management letter, and here is where we provide any additional recommendations or points of emphasis we wanted to convey, essentially. And so you'll see that there are those 6 bullet points. I won't necessarily go in depth on these at all, since we have the narrative within the management letter that you should have. The one that I did want to point out and discuss a little bit is the last bullet point there, the fund balance or deficit. So that's specifically obviously related to the general fund. And so at the end of 2024, so as of 12/31/24, the deficit, or the general fund, did have a deficit fund balance of a little over $990,000. Now that is a quite significant balance. However, essentially the main reason for that is really due to the timing of the Park Road, that significant road project that was undertaken in 24. So essentially, the expenditures were incurred and paid in 2024, but then the financing for that, your Wisconsin DOT grant, the refinancing of the short-term loan that you had to help cash flow that project, and refinancing that into long-term debt, essentially, those two events weren't to happen until 2025 here. I don't know, Susan, have you received the grant yet, or converted the short-term?
We're working on it.
Okay. So essentially, there's that timing issue of you incur the expenses in 2024, but then you're not actually receiving basically your revenue to help finance those expenses for the most part until 2025. So once those two events happen, that will obviously decrease the deficit, let's say, there from where it was at the end of 2024. Now, with that said, at the beginning of 2024, or at the end of 23, essentially, for the 23 audit, there was still also a deficit. Now, not as large as the end of 24, but there still was a deficit at the end of 23. So even though you will have your grant funding coming in and your conversion from the short-term to the long-term loan, there probably in 25, there probably will still be a deficit in the fund balance. Now, with that said, there are a couple recommendations that we had to help assist with trying to get that fund balance back up to a positive amount, essentially. So the first one is to, when you're monitoring your budget or monitoring the financial statements, to be cognizant of potential areas that expenditures could, where you could decrease expenditures, where there could be maybe some spending restrictions in a sense. This isn't necessarily, probably not going to be a one-year thing. This is probably going to be a multi-year process to try to really bump fund balance back up to a positive amount. And so by looking for those potential areas where you could decrease spending, that'll hopefully help incrementally bring fund balance back up over X amount of years.
Question for you.
Yep.
Were you able to dive far enough to actually give a recommendation on what those may be?
The potential areas?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean, this might be for going forward now. This
Right.
might, like when you're doing your budget process.
Right.
What areas, maybe looking back X amount of years, what areas could we, pull back on a little bit for this upcoming year kind of thing. So that, I guess, off the top of my head right now, I don't have a clear recommendation as to what areas you could. It might just be looking forward now, when you're going through your budget, or even currently here in 25, are there any potential areas that you could decrease, or decrease your spending? Another area that could assist with the deficit is, we noted that at the end of 24, the town was only using essentially less than 6% of its overall general obligation debt capacity, its debt limit. So if there are any, for example, significant road projects, again, here coming down the pike, or any material, capital equipment or renovations to town facilities, things like that, you could go out for long-term debt, as you have with other items in the past. You could go out for long-term debt, and essentially what you would do there is you could also put it on the tax roll, similar to what you do with your loans outstanding currently. And then essentially the tax revenue coming in would pay for those debt payments, those subsequent debt payments, and then you would have your operational cash to pay for your typical operating expenses, rather than also needing to pay for your debt service payments. So there are a couple of opportunities there to help alleviate this deficit. But again, it's probably going to be a multi-year process in order to get it back up to a positive amount, and exceed where it has been in past years. So before I get into more, are there any more questions on that or discussion you want to go over there? Okay. So on page 1, we get into the actual financials themselves. And so this is essentially a condensed balance sheet of the general fund. And so at the top there, you'll see the general fund's assets. The majority of the general fund's assets at year end were in the form of cash and taxes receivable. Now, the majority of the cash on hand at 12/31 were tax collections, year-end tax collections, essentially. So not all that cash is not solely the town's. Some of that cash is going to get, here in 25, would get settled and paid out to the other taxing units. So that, even though that is a significant cash balance at year end, the town is the fiduciary, tax collection agency for the other taxing units. Then you'll note the liabilities there, the sort of two larger line items. So you have your short-term notes payable, so that includes your annual one that you take out essentially for your road projects, but then that also includes the draws for the Park Road project. And then you have your due to other governments, so the 7.7 million there is the aggregated amount that gets paid out to the other taxing units for the tax levy, the 24 tax levy. Deferred inflows or resources, now that amount is the town's portion. So that's the town's portion of the 24 tax levy to be essentially recognized as revenue in 2025 here. And then the net amount you'll see is the fund balance or the deficit. So those are the two, and you'll see in the 23 and then in 24 again, there was a deficit there in both years. And then we do split out the fund balance, or the total fund balance or deficit, by the applicable classifications there. The first there being non-spendable, but then the rest being the unassigned portion. And so this isn't really necessarily relevant for 24, but once you do bring your fund balance back up and it gets back to a positive amount, we typically suggest the unassigned fund balance to be anywhere from 15 to 20% of your budgeted expenditures. So basically taking your unassigned fund balance divided by your expenditures in any given year. And what that sort of signifies is, what sort of operating reserve do you have in place? And so if, for example, if you have 15 to 20% of your unassigned fund balance, comparing that to what your expenses are, that's just sort of a good indicator as to if there's any decrease in funding or any unexpected expenditures. How much unassigned fund balance do you have that could help mitigate those issues in the meantime? So 15 to 25% is typically what we recommend, just to have available for those potential, things that may come about. But again, that's more for when you actually start getting your fund balance back up into a positive amount. So that was more for informational purposes for down the road here in the next couple of years. And page 2, at the top there, we have essentially a summarized income statement, or a budget to actual statement. So you'll note that the 24 budget was a balanced budget where your expected revenues or your budgeted revenues and other financing sources agreed to your expenditures. Where in actuality, the fund balance went down, $832,000, as you'll note there, but that's why there was the significant increase in the deficit. It's directly correlated to that change in fund balance there. And then the second part of the page there, as I mentioned, here we're comparing the general obligation debt outstanding at year end and comparing that to what the town's debt capacity is, the town's debt limit. So as you can see, less than 6% use of that debt limit at the end of 24. So again, there's potential there where if you can go out for debt, you have that opportunity or that capability, since you're well within your debt limit there. So then on page 3 here, we have a essentially five-year trend analysis of the general fund's expenditures. And I won't necessarily get too in-depth on the historical data, but as you can see, there have been some fluctuations there in the different expenditure classifications. But specifically comparing 2023 and 2024, the blue line there you see spiked way up. That is the capital outlay line. The majority of the expenses within that amount is the park road expenditures there. So that was quite a significant project, therefore having that fluctuation. And then the other one that increased a little bit there is the green line, and that's public works. And there are a couple, it seemed like there were a couple reasons for that. One, there were some new public works employees that started in 24. There's a little bit of turnover there, but a couple of new hires there. And then also the town shop had renovations in 2024 as well. So that was an additional cost or a new cost in 2024 compared to 2023. Page 4, here we just have another representation of 24 and 23 expenditures, comparing the total expenditures, I should say each individual expenditure classification to total expenditures, and getting the ratio or the percentage there, sort of each percentage of each piece of the pie. So as you can see, with the big spike in capital outlay, the capital outlay expenditures increased to 33% of total expenditures during the year, compared to 14% in 2023. And then there were some other fluctuations due to that. There were some other fluctuations to the other classifications as well. Public safety decreased from 33% to 23% between years. Page 5, another 5-year analysis now of the general fund's revenues. So unlike expenditures, revenues have stayed fairly consistent. There's been some increases there. You'll see that the largest revenue source of the town is obviously tax levy revenues. That has sort of been steadily increasing up the past few years, most notably due to the debt service payments that have been going on to the tax roll, just the increase in those debt service payments. And then you'll also note the intergovernmental, the green line there. The intergovernmental revenues increased between years from 23 to 24. Couple reasons for that. There was the use of the remaining ARPA funding during the year, and so that was shown as a liability at the end of 24, and now that you had allowable expenditures, you're able to recognize that as revenue in 24. So that was part of the increase there, and then there was also the expected new shared revenue that came into effect in 24, the supplemental county municipal aid, I believe it was called. So that was a new shared revenue that became effective in 2024 for essentially all municipalities. Page 6, another pie chart analysis now for the revenues. So you can see taxes was almost 52% of total revenues, but that was a decrease from about 57% in 2023. And then intergovernmental revenues increased from about 19% in 23 up to 25% in 2024. But otherwise, the other revenue classifications were pretty consistent there between years, percentage-wise. And then lastly, one final 5-year analysis, trend analysis, now again comparing the overall debt capacity to the overall outstanding general obligation debt at the past 5 years. So as you can see, and so I guess as I mentioned, for the past 5 years, not just 2024, but for the past 5 years, the town has been well within its overall debt capacity comparing what was actually outstanding at year end. One item I did want to note is that you'll see the red line there, so that's the debt limit that has been steadily increasing the past 4 years about. And the reason for that is because the debt limit is 5% of the town's equalized value in any given year. So essentially when the town's equalized value goes up, so will the town's debt limit. And so we have that part of the table down below, or the bottom part of the table, we have the equalized value, its overall growth, and then its percentage growth. So as you can see, the equalized value has been steadily increasing as well. So with that is the last page of our presentation. I did want to thank Susan for her assistance and work during the audit process again this year. We really appreciate your help. So I guess with that said, are there any additional questions for us with regards to the audit this year?
First of all, great job. This is amazing. It's the first time I've seen anything quite this detailed that I remember. And I've been around 12 years now, or 11 and a half, so this is amazing. Second question is, your opinion on the borrow that we have to do every year of $450,000.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned, as far as debt limit, that's part of that number.
Correct.
Are you recommending anything different in that area? And how we could come up with a plan to reduce that? Or are you saying that's something we should continue doing to reduce the debt?
Well, I guess I know that's an annual thing that you have essentially to help finance your annual summer road projects, basically. So I believe.
Well, it's used for all kinds of stuff. I mean,
okay.
Not just roads.
Right. So I guess if that's something, because again, that's something that you also put onto the tax roll as well. So you have your tax revenue is essentially helping pay for your debt payments on that. So at this point, it may be more prudent to continue having that because again, it's assisting you with your road projects or assisting you with other fire and EMS or other capital expenditures that you may have throughout the year. And so that would be up to the board as to what you want to do with that. But just with where you are currently deficit-wise, if you didn't have that loan, you wouldn't be able to then therefore put it onto the tax roll to have have the tax levy be able to, have the tax revenue to pay for that. And so I would say if you eliminate it now, your other resources would need to cover those costs, cover those capital, cover those fire and EMS costs, where previously or currently it's with your short-term loan that you can put on the tax roll. So I guess I would, again, it's up to you, up to the board of how you want to proceed with that. But currently, I would say if you didn't have that loan, your deficit would be
Worse.
greater.
Right. So. Oh, it's quite a debate every year.
Right.
But again, like I mentioned, you have the capacity to do that. I would say to have that loan in place currently, or to go out for an additional loan to help with other capital costs or projects or whatnot too. So multiple avenues to go down.
So when you said that you recommend 15 to 20%, do you find that most of your clients are actually doing that?
The majority, I would say, are probably within that range. Some are maybe a little bit below, some are exceed that even. I know, I think one of our management letter comments actually is to implement a formal fund balance policy where it sort of lays out.
That's a good idea.
What sort of lays out, you know, a potential minimum, essentially a minimum fund balance percentage, unassigned fund balance percentage, as I mentioned, like a 15 to 20%, for example, to actually have that in writing and to have a formal policy in place. So when you actually do, you know, your fund balance is positive and you start accumulating more fund balance, you have this policy in place to say, okay, we, you know, try to get up to this minimum or maximum 15%, so we have this reserve in place. So but to answer your question, I would say the majority of my clients probably, if they have a formal fund balance policy in place, they generally meet it. Or even if they don't, you know, again, our recommendation is usually 15 to 20. They're typically within that range for the most part.
Is that something that you help us create, this policy?
Yes, I mean, I can definitely send, or Adam or I can definitely send templates for you to you know, just a sample template policy for you to format how you will, and that's something definitely you could then bring to the full board and approve that formally too. So
Maybe something to just discuss and explore to see
Yep.
what we feel comfortable doing.
Exactly. Yeah, we can definitely get something to Susan, and you can run with that.
All right.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? No.
It's very helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, this has been.
It's our pleasure. Yeah, no, it's definitely our pleasure. It's good to talk this stuff through, have good discussions, and you know, so we can move forward to 2025 and help out as we can there too. So.
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you for a great presentation. Okay, I'm going to get myself situated here.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to number 6, discussion and possible action on 2025 road plan.
Just what I want to do, follow that.
Which is why.
You should all have a sheet of what I got estimated from the county for South Oakland Road project. It was just a little bit lower than what I estimated. We do have $149,000 in the road repair budget. Not looking at spending all that, obviously, with this project. There is a culvert on there that needs to be repaired or replaced. When I went to that spring school session in the Dells, they had vendors on hand that were showing the latest, and this company lines culverts with it's a liner that is only about 5/8 thick once it's all installed and inflated. And it can last between 75 and 100 years.
Oh, my goodness.
So it'll outlast any metal or plastic culvert that we would
Wow.
install, and you don't disturb anything. That culvert on South Oakland has a stream going through it. One side of the road is a wetland, the other side's not. I don't know how that can be, but I do have the DNR permit for that, but I'd rather not disturb the structure if I can. I was unable to get a price for that due to he has to have their engineer look at it a little bit more, because it's two different size culverts. You have a metal culvert, and then you have blocks. It's old-time blocks, masonry. They can put the liner in there, and it'll fine, it'll work, it'll last us our 75 to 100 years. But he wanted to get a firm price on that through his engineer, so that's why I don't have that tonight. But that would be part of the road, come out of the road estimate.
Is that right there at Marsh Road? Is that where
Yeah.
that is?
Yeah, right next to the old, I think
And-
that was a cheese thing or creamery right there.
Is that a residence or what is that?
Yeah, it's a residence now.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm waiting on. So as you can see, the estimated price, and that's county, so you wouldn't have to bid it, because they're they're nonprofit, so they fall in a different category, so we wouldn't have to put it out for bids. So when I get the estimate for the culvert, I will bring it to the board. I should have it probably within the next couple weeks.
That's in addition to this,
Yes, that'd be addition to this.
to the 81?
Yeah. Well, 867.64 for the road project sheet I gave you. I believe that's it, yep.
What is it?
So then we have,
The next
Oh,
one.
the next sheet.
Yeah,
so our budget for the year is 149.
correct.
So then we have
I get it,
81. So it's most likely that you don't believe this culvert would make us go over budget. We probably have some budget left over.
Correct, correct. They're also looking at doing another culvert on Red Feather. In the past, we did overlay and fixed that road. The culvert lost its bottom. It hasn't affected the structure of the road at all. And it's a 15-inch culvert. That one is not a problem. They don't need to engineer that one. But he was just gonna give me a price with them all together. The more we do, the less the travel and fee we have to do. They're doing they're doing liners on interstate between Cottage Grove and Lake Mills right now for I-94.
Where is the company from?
There's a salesman out of Wisconsin up by River Falls, but the main company's out of South Dakota. It's a German product that they brought over here and have been manufacturing here. So,
I think this is a really nice idea, particularly for this South Oakland Road. You know, then we're not disturbing the wetlands and the stream on the other side. And also this reduces, you didn't really talk about that, reduces the amount of time that the road would be closed.
yeah, actually, the road will remain open at least one lane. And then if it's gotta be replaced, it's probably gonna be closed for a couple days. So I'm interested to see what we get for a price on that.
So he's combining the two.
Yeah, but it'll be separate prices for each project, but he's
Okay.
combining them so we don't have a travel cost as
Okay.
high. And since he was unable to get the price to us, he was gonna try to tie him in with I-94, but they're doing them this week. So, but he said he wouldn't hold that against us, because he's gonna come down and do another project. I don't know where that one's located, but, so he said he would tie it in, but it wouldn't take long to do. It's about a day.
So then, at this point, do you think it is best that we approve Oakland Road, so the road itself, so we can get onto the county's schedule?
Yes. I recommend we approve the price for South Oakland. That'll finish up that road that we've been putting off for a long time. The edges are getting really bad. When you start losing edges, then you start everybody starts crowding the center, and then you start losing as it goes, and then you don't know how wide your road really is by the time you're done. And right now, if we approve this price, the county's got a little more flexibility to put us in where they want. With the greenhouse on there, I don't want to disturb his business because he's only open in the spring. So we should be able to schedule in when he's done with his season.
Yeah. So when I talked to him, he thought, mid-July, 1st July would be
Yeah. We did a lot of
better.
prep work on that road, tree-wise, so this would be the next step to.
Okay. So you want to bring back the culvert price for approval when you get it? you're
Yes,
saying?
please, yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the South Oakland Road for $80,867.64.
Okay.
I'll
Jimmy
second
made-
it.
Jimmy second, Joy, Jimmy, motion, Joy made a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving South Oakland Road repairs for $80,867.64, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So then you'll come back next month with the price of the culvert, and
Yep.
then if there's any money left over, we can see what we do with that after.
And a nice thing too, if by chance the culvert doesn't get fixed till after the road's done, it's not gonna disturb the surface of the road. So we'll still have the
Mhm.
quality.
Right. So we don't have to worry about coordinating that time.
Right, yep. We wouldn't have to, I mean, it would be nice to have it done before they do it, but it's not
They
necessary.
dig under or what?
No, they just put a liner in and they expand it, and then they use UV light to harden it. The process is quite interesting, because it's kind of like inflated, and then the light and the cameras go through and they make sure the temperature's all in the correct bandwidth, and then they harden this. Yeah, it was quite interesting. There is another way you can put a different culvert size in there, and then they put grout around it.
Mhm. I've
But,
seen that.
You're really decreasing your diameter of the culvert. And when we get a lot of rain, you don't want that.
Well, thank you for attending that conference.
Oh, it was very educational.
Good.
And got to meet a lot of other small municipalities like us, and there's a lot that are better off than us, and then there's a lot that are worse off, so it's an eye-opener. It's an eye-opener. Any other questions on anything else?
Did you have to do anything about the trees on Park Road that hit the wires this
Nope,
morning?
nope, that was all, you didn't lose power, you just,
No, we didn't lose power, and I didn't know exactly why they were out there until I talked to our one neighbor, and because when I saw the fire department, they were parked in front of a house where I knew that couple is on vacation, and I thought, oh no, it's something with their house, but I talked to another neighbor, and it was one of his trees, or a couple of his trees hit the wires, and they were smoking.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm afraid we're gonna see more in that with the way these winds have been this spring.
yeah, terrible.
We're just gonna have more mysterious trees falling in the road and power lines.
Yeah, Ashi Road, did you have to go out
Yeah,
there?
I had that one on Thursday night. Yeah, you come down the hill, I don't know, the sheriff's department called me, and I don't understand why they didn't have a deputy out there, because you come down the hill and there was the tree. So, I mean, but, yeah, we got that one out, so no incidents.
Yeah, you've been busy.
Yes,
Thanks, Jeff.
thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Moving on to discussion and possible action on request by Eric and Natalia Burns for a land division to create a 1.5 acre residential lot in existing R2 zone located across from N4086 US Highway 12 from parcel 022-0613-1711-003.
Hi.
Hi,
How
good
are
to
you
see
doing?
you.
Good to see you. Once again, my name is Eric Burns. We own a property right over here on Highway A on the corner of A and 12. And on the, I guess it'd be the west side of A, we have a 6-acre residential parcel. We basically want to separate that into a 1.5-acre parcel and then a 4.5-acre parcel. So, and I talked to the highway department, as I stated previously. They did approve a second drive, so each parcel will have its own drive.
Right. And so the planning committee heard this last month, or the beginning of this month, and approved it. There's really no issues. I had called the county too. There's no problems with it. They'll meet their setbacks for their homes once they're built.
Right.
So there's no issue at all with dividing this up. It's kind of a strange way. It's not really together, the two parcels.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they're together now, but then
But
they'll be
separate.
separated. Yep.
So we didn't find any issues with this. It's pretty straightforward.
You'll have 2 driveways coming out on 12 then?
No, this is on A.
The the property that's listed as N4086 is actually Highway A. It's not, it's listed on here as 12, that's a misprint.
Right.
I guess I wasn't listening.
It's right after the Lake Rip land, basically.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, just for clarity.
right. So that's why it's a little unusual, because the one will have the driveway on A and the other one will have the driveway.
They will both have a driveway on
Driveway
A,
on A.
and on this parcel, what we're gonna talk about next has a driveway on 12 already.
Okay,
The
okay.
next agenda item.
All right, okay.
So-
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Got
so on
confused
A,
with the,
the 4.5 acre already has a driveway,
Mhm.
and then the 1.5 acre would have its own driveway, so it wouldn't need a shared driveway, which is nice. So, it's already marked out too by the highway department.
okay, sorry, there was a typo on that from the
Oh,
county.
was there?
Yeah, I went through the other meeting, nobody
Yeah.
even questioned it, but it was just, I just looked at them and I'm like, no, wait, that's just
Right.
an error.
Oh, yeah, it says N4086 US Highway 12,
12.
you are correct, yep.
And there are no N numbers on 12,
No,
No.
they're not.
except up in the town of Jefferson, there's some N numbers.
Oh, okay,
And
Over
when
here
the
you
fire
get
department's
W.
looking for the places.
okay. Good to know. So any other questions or comments? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Okay. David Drews has made a motion to approve the request by Eric and Natalia Burns for land division to create 1.5 acre residential lot in the existing R2 zone located across from N4086 County Road A. Great. All right. Do I have a second?
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to your next request.
So my next request, right across the street from that lot is a 21 acre lot that is on the corner of 12 and A. And if some of you remember, there used to be a farmhouse right where the wall is over here. There was a farmhouse back there that I tore down because it was, well, you couldn't really live in it. And the driveway is already there. So I'm looking for a farm consolidation basically on that. So basically what I want to do is use the same site where the farmhouse was, put another house there, but I need to move it past where that house was, because on that little bump out where the farmhouse was, I don't have the you don't have the proper setbacks to put anything in there, so I need to use that, and I also need to go down into my tree field a little bit. So So basically, that's what I'm requesting.
Right, so it's on the second plat, you can see.
Yes, and you can see where the farmhouse used to be, I believe, that's a historical picture,
Right,
so.
so by combining it, then he can have the proper setback.
Correct, yes. And that's about 1.5 acres too, give or take, depending how the survey works out, so.
Right, so there were no issues with this one as well for the planning committee. We unanimously approved that as well.
Sure.
And didn't have any concerns, and neither did the county, that this was acceptable.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Eric Burns' rezone from A1 to A3.
Okay,
I will second that.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you. We'll be sending this to the county tomorrow to get on their agenda.
Sounds great.
Right, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on now to number 9, discussion on burn ordinance 2025, potentially 30, large burn permit and fireworks permit. So there was a permit or an ordinance in 2023, and it had stated the use of the 3 different fire departments we were using at that time. And then Joy pointed out that we are no longer with Cambridge, so it needed to be revised for that. And so she had revised that, and I had taken a look at the ordinances and the associated permits as well, and made some additional changes. We had talked about it last month briefly, that the fire chiefs at their county meetings were in discussions about how they would like to have burn bans placed, some type of consistency. It seems that they're still in discussions. Hopefully that will be resolved this coming month, but I think it's clear that to them that we and other communities don't want to have a burn ban within our communities, just partial, that no matter what we would do, we would have a burn ban for the entire town, just for consistency's sake, and just just to be clear to people. So they're looking into that and looking into whether they want to have a countywide issuance. We'll see what they have to say next month, so we'll bring it back then. But I wanted everybody to look at this now and have discussions. There were some things I put in that I wanted to discuss to get people's opinions on, and see if we can come to some type of resolution so we can have it revised and put on next month's agenda. So I put in some definitions in here that we didn't have before. We do the burn ban section 30.3 is now. I really didn't change that much, except the one thing I did change in there is that based on our attorney and the fire chief's recommendation, that potentially if we needed to put on a burn ban very quickly, that it might be difficult, especially in the summer, to get the board together to make that. And then if that were the case, the chair could just place the burn ban on in the event that we couldn't meet quickly enough. So,
Well, we have an ordinance where you could place a burn ban.
right, right. But in the first one, it had said, that the board would get together for that. And now it's saying we could just have the Oakland chairperson or the Town of Oakland board,
Oh,
depending on how,
well,
Time sensitive it is.
right.
we issued a burn ban, and we just did a special meeting. It wasn't a difficult thing to do.
Right, right, that could be the case. That's why we're just discussing it here now. If there was a time, we could do that, but if there was ever a time when it was really time sensitive and we couldn't get a quorum, let's say it was over holiday, or something like that where we couldn't get a quorum as quickly as we needed for time sense, if we needed to get that done right away. So the suggestion was that in the event that we couldn't get it, that we add that the chair could do it alone if needed, based on the recommendations of the DNR and fire chiefs.
The fire chiefs, yeah.
Yeah.
I would suggest that we add town chairperson or designee, because when we issued the burn ban before, Ted actually went on vacation, and so we had to have someone take his place.
Right.
That's common language, yeah, you certainly could
Yeah.
put something like that in there.
Susan and I had discussed that, and there seems to be a policy that while a chair is unavailable, there would be a designee that would be available for all items that may come up. So that would be under a different,
So why wouldn't you
Policy.
just put it in this ordinance?
well, then we
You're not saying you wouldn't, right?
No, we could, but we thought that for simplicity, that we do have something else in place where the designee would be, it would just be simpler to say they will take over the role of all chairs' responsibilities while the chair is away.
So how would you write that ordinance? Because if you have change in board members, I don't understand how you would write an ordinance like that.
Well, it would just be I think it could be, we talked about
It would
a
be a
policy.
policy.
It would just be a policy. That it wouldn't really make a difference who the chair or the designee was, but before the chair was on leave, vacation, or whatever for extended period, there would be a policy that we would have that person take all the roles of the chair.
And who would decide who that person is?
We
Well,
would.
We would. We would do it as the policy. If we put this in here as
Okay.
designee, we're still not defining designee or the policy on how to
Correct.
create it. So we would have to have another policy, even if we put in here designee, or we would have to put into here how we would come up with that designee. So if we had a different policy, it would be all-encompassing for anything that was occurring.
Okay. I would like to see it in this specific ordinance or designee.
Okay, then in this ordinance, we have to put in a policy of how we come up with the designee or the definition of a designee.
You can appoint a designee before you go on vacation or whatever. I don't know. It didn't seem to be a problem when we issued burn ban before in 2023.
Aren't burn bans done countywide? rather
Not
than just a
necessarily
township?
right now, no, right now,
Really?
it's the township, and that's what they're looking at right now, the fire chiefs. So we can do it, but then we should put a definition of designee and how we're going to come up with that designee.
I guess, I don't, all right.
We can add that, but then we're going to have to add how we're going to get that, and we should still have a policy for designee because there may be other things that come up during
So
an
would you
absence.
do a definition of a designee
Yes.
as appointed? At the beginning, you would add another definition.
Yes, we would have to add another
for
definition.
designee is
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
board member
Mhm.
appointed by a
Right.
chairperson when the chairperson
Right.
is unavailable. That would be a simple,
right. But then we should put that in every single ordinance in case the chair was gone. So that's why I was thinking if we have just a policy for designee to state that when the chair is gone and there's appointed a designee, they will take over the responsibility of the role of the chair in all matters that state the chairperson. That's why I was thinking that would be simpler. Otherwise, why this ordinance and why not every other ordinance that we have?
okay.
Do you understand? I mean, we could still do it that way, but that was just my thought process with that. I mean, does anyone think that it would be good to have an overall policy on?
Well, we don't have that on the agenda, so
No,
let's not
no,
dive into
okay,
that now.
you're
But
right.
I think, that certainly could be on future agendas, and maybe it coordinates with the next time
Okay.
we look at this, right?
Okay. All right.
The beginning of we've already repealed and recreated ordinance number 30. So this should read, the beginning should read, ordinance repealing and recreating ordinance 2023-30.
Okay. All right. Okay, so then we'll put that in section 1 as well. 2023-30.
And I would say if we have any other questions or comments, we could email between now and the next month, just shoot you guys an email with their concerns or comments.
Yeah, we can do
And then
that.
we can put it all together and talk about it again next month.
Okay.
Okay, I thought, all right, if we want to go, I thought maybe we'd go through a couple more
Yeah, go ahead.
items, just to think about. We don't have to decide them today, but I really would like to point out one thing as far as the fireworks to think about. It seemed that in the last one we were talking about, I'm trying to find it, limiting to just the holidays. I thought maybe, some people may not want to burn on the holidays. They may want to burn a different time. I did talk to Leanna Spencer. There was some water quality samples collected before and after the last fireworks in July to review what the impacts, if any, would be for fireworks to the water quality. And there was not much change, just slight changes. I had talked to Leanne about how she felt about prohibiting. So, a way to potentially keep the health of the lake, I thought about limiting the fireworks to only five displays in a calendar year, one per applicant. First come, first serve, within like the urban area that would be pretty much surrounding the lake, just to try to limit that for the sake of the lake. And then if we see any issues down the line, I believe that Leanne is going to want to continue to have the sampling done. Is that correct,
Well, the
Jim?
Lake District has done that, I think, 1 year now.
Right, but planning on continuing that.
I mean, I believe so.
And so if in the future there's any indication that there's any real negative impacts, we could always revisit the number or even banning it completely if warranted. So something to think about. Like I said, I went over that with Leanna, and then outside the Lake District, the urban area, that we wouldn't need to limit it. So just one of the items I thought that we should consider.
So where did you put where you limited it to 5? Oh, under permits, is that?
It's in permits, yeah.
Because, right, the current ordinance is for legal holiday periods, Memorial Day, July 4th, Labor Day, and New Year's Eve.
It's right here.
Right. Oh, 30.9. Yes, yes, that was the original. But like I had just mentioned, you know, perhaps somebody wants to have fireworks on their, you know, 50th anniversary or some big event. Should we be limiting it just, instead of limiting it to holidays?
Well, it says other special events serving the community will be approved at the discretion of the town.
Right.
So it's not,
Right.
I mean, that
So-
covers weddings or whatever, then
Right.
that's
So,
what's in the original.
right. But just removing it, just saying, you know, just any time, it could just be simpler that way, that, you know, if it's at the discretion, we just, you know, something to think about, just say 5 total. It doesn't have to be then, you know, we don't need to mention the holidays if at all then, just simpler for that. So, so something to think about then, and then look at over everything else. By next month, hopefully the fire chiefs have had some additional conversations, and I can bring what their discussions were, and if there's any recommendations that we want to, you know, we want to include in this. We'll see where we're at with that. How's that sound?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right, so, yeah, send in your comments, and we will try to include everything and compile that.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll move on to number 10, Enbridge update. So I reviewed the, you know, continue to review the Birds on the Web website that the DNR has. They're continuing to add all their reports. I did also talk to Caroline Rice, who's the project manager for this, on Friday, and then also this afternoon. So here's some of the items that have happened since the last month's meeting. So the site investigation work plan addendum was submitted to the DNR on May 1st, and it addressed all the DNR's comments that it had. It also included some of the boring logs and, well, all the boring logs and volume contamination excavated calculations. It confirmed that there will be quarterly sampling that wasn't explicitly mentioned for groundwater, stormwater, and the private wells that are within a half a mile of the site. And they will be testing for total VOCs and PAHs, so polyaromatic hydrocarbons. The DNR has not finalized their review yet, but it will be reviewed like all the other reports that are submitted by a panel of the DNR staff and specialists. So that should be shortcoming. They are doing their oil extraction, as they had mentioned in previous reports. So that started the week of April 10th, and they will be continuing on a weekly basis. They're removing the free product from 10 riser pipes, and the reports online and information that they've received to date shows that between April 10th and May 6th, a total of 20 gallons have been removed, a total from all of the wells combined. They also did a supplemental soil excavation that was conducted just to the south of the pump house. And an interim report was submitted to date, not the final, but they were pretty aggressive with their excavation. They excavated, they didn't have a volume. I assume they're going to have to work on calculating that total volume, but it was 2,588 square feet, area, and a maximum depth of 13.5. So they will be submitting at some point the final report once they gather all that information, and we should know more at that time. So that's really helpful, removing more of the contaminated soil. The monitoring wells will be installed in mid-June. The soil vapor extraction pilot test work plan was submitted April 7th, and that will be installed, the one pilot well would be installed with the monitoring wells, and then that pilot test will take place in midsummer. And then the stream samples and private well samples, those will be collected in mid-June. So the DNR does go, I mean not the DNR, the Lake District does go out with Enbridge, and they take split samples of the stream. So, and they each get it tested independently, and they can review how they compare. So far, they've all come back the same. They did add a fourth location for the surface water sampling. So that was a very good thing to get another spot along the stream to be tested. And then finally, on April 14th, they took soil samples around the main line of line 6 and one at the header pipeline, and they did not detect any VOCs or PAHs in any of those samples. So that indicates, hopefully, that there is no preferential pathway along that pipeline. But it's my understanding that they will be collecting additional samples to ensure that that's not, and that's something that they will continue to look at with them. So, they've been doing some additional work. I think it's, removing that soil, the contaminated soil, was a really good first step in remediating the site. But like I said, we don't really have too much else yet, but hopefully once those monitoring wells are installed, they'll start sampling the groundwater on a quarterly basis. So that is what I have for that. Did anyone have any questions? Nope. Okay. So we'll move on then. We have correspondence. There, in your packet, there is a DOT meeting for all those here that would like to attend. It's on our website as well. The DOT is just renting out our space. They're going to have a meeting to discuss their improvements on US Highway 18 surrounding Hope Lake Road, where there's that curve. And so everyone is welcome. Please come and ask questions about it. They're explaining what they're going to be doing there, but the construction will not be taking place until 2027. So it's ways out.
2027 or 26?
I believe it's 2027.
I don't think it says.
It's not, okay.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say here, but I thought when I talked to them, they said 2027.
Oh.
I know, it seems
thought-
far out, doesn't it?
Well, I thought when we had that meeting, this is what he had obtained a grant for, correct? And I thought
I
it said
don't-
2026
The DOT received a grant?
for that,
Oh.
to make that curve safer.
Yes.
Thought he had- I'll ask at the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure they'll go over that. And so there is also in here, the locations, but it's just basically around that curve. And the other item we have from the DOT is their speed data. They did a traffic study along this stretch and further east and further west. And you can see that in here. It's, a lot of information. But based on this, we have been told that they are not reducing the speed limit. I actually asked at the traffic safety meeting if they had taken into account the fact that the high school is right at the eastern edge where they increased to 55, and all of the driveways and the curve and all of that as part of this. They said they did, but they were not going to increase it. So I said that people probably would be asking questions about that too, so be prepared.
That's correct. I think a lot of our neighbors are coming
They should.
because of that.
Yeah, they should be coming for that. I did say that I thought that people would be very disappointed that the speed limit was not going to be reduced, because it is a safety issue in this area. So I encourage everyone to come and voice their concerns about that. Thank you. Thank you.
It is?
And I apologize. I am going to, no, I'll do this in announcements. Never mind. That is all I have, but I believe, Susan, you had some more?
If any of the board members would like to attend the officials workshop, there's a virtual option, June 2nd through 5th. It's put on by the Wisconsin Towns Association, and the agenda is, it covers the basics of being a town supervisor. So if anybody would like to go, please let me know and I can get you registered.
Okay.
And the only option available right now is the virtual option.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to approval of disbursements. We have that here on your desk. You don't have time here
No, we know.
to make the motion. Would anyone else like to?
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the disbursements for the electronic filings, starting with 1,789.39 and ending, what is it, 1,308? For $128,852.44.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor of the disbursement, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Okay. Okay, so our next meeting will be June 17th. We have, if you would like to attend, the Lake Mills Fire Department will have their quarterly meeting at the firehouse on May 29th at 6 p.m. Did you have any other announcements? I have one.
And then we're going to be planning a special board meeting on June 10th. That's a Tuesday. Depending upon, we don't have a time for it yet. It'll probably be 4:30 or 5 on June 10th. I will let you know.
Special board meeting.
A special board meeting
Do we know?
to discuss,
Contract.
I believe it is the contracts for the Didion project or the preserve at Oakland.
The fort, or the fort.
Or the fort, and the fort
The
fire.
Fort Fire, the Fort Fire. And I just have one other announcement, that the Badger Solar Badger State Solar has now stated that they are going to be moving forward finally with their construction of their solar farm, and that is going to begin construction in July. They haven't set a date yet. They are working on their driveway permits. Jeff will be working with them for that if they haven't already. They've talked to him about it. So that will be on Perry Road here, but it'll be in both Jefferson and Oakland towns. And they're finalizing their main staging and array. So we'll get more information and maps at a later date. I've requested them, but I don't think they've finalized that yet. And looks like they're.
Can we invite them to our next meeting so that they can present?
Yeah, we can do that. I can ask them to come. I'll see if they're available for that. You know, they didn't have a lot, Jeff had talked to them as well, and they haven't finalized a lot yet, so hopefully by then they will, because they should, since it's coming up soon. But it looks like they will be staging in Jefferson Township. It's near 89 and Q, just north of 18. And that's near the movie theater. And so they'll be having to work with the county and the town with all of their proper signage. They'll be rating and videoing all the roads, so if they're damaged during construction, they will have to pay to have those repaired when it's all said and done. And then, like I said, we'll try to get their final plans and drawings by the next meeting. And then just one last thing to note from the JDA, everyone, well, not, the two of you had worked on the JDA with the county and approved that in 2020. And so the utility share revenue in here states that approximately $596,000 annually will be given back to the community. Close to $350,000 will go to the county, and then approximately $250,000 will be divided between Jefferson and Oakland, and that will be based on the rates in milliwatts per acre. So how many arrays are in each of the communities? That's how it'll be divided up. I asked them about that, but since they didn't have the final array, they couldn't give us how it'll be divided quite yet. So once they start to get online, we will get a revenue stream from them. So I will ask for them to come, and then we can ask any questions that we have and get a little bit more information, but that's all we received so far.
So did Jefferson County implement that ordinance on solar?
No, to my knowledge, they have not done that yet.
Okay.
There were they did bring it forward, and there were some questions, and they were going to be revisiting that and looking at it probably at the committee level first and bring it back to the full board.
Okay.
I'll keep you posted on that if I get any information on it. So that's all I have for announcements. So future agenda items, we'll bring back the burn ordinance. We will have probably the short-term rental at some point, once we gathered enough information to at least start those discussions. And anything else that we should be doing. You know, we'll have the subdivision back on next month, once we have everything to review and approve.
So we're not approving that at the special board meeting then?
No.
So it's just Fort Fire contract?
Yeah.
Mainly Fort Fire.
Fort Fire, yeah.
And then any updates that need to be presented
Yeah,
on
We'll see.
on anything.
yeah, if we see anything from
Right.
Lake Mills Fire.
We haven't really set an agenda yet.
Right.
I know there's a fire commission meeting tomorrow night,
Yes.
Cambridge Fire, or EMS, Fire Commission. You haven't had any invites from anybody?
No, no. But anyone's welcome to go if you want to listen. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. And
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.